right, it's the Tuesday evening edition of the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video. It is January 5th, and this is Weather for Weather Geeks. We've got plenty to talk about this evening, even though this is overall a pretty quiet weather pattern. I always try to find some interesting things to discuss, even when the weather is not all that impactful. And I wanted to start out this evening with kind of a different-looking map. This is something that we oftentimes like to look at during the first week or two of the year. This company called Visalia, or Visela, is a company that tracks lightning worldwide and provides lightning data to any number of clients throughout the country and throughout the world. And they do a little year in review, and one of the maps they put out today shows the lightning compared to a 5-year average in the year 2020 across the country. The red colors, as you can see by the legend down here, the red colors are above average lightning strikes, the numbers of lightning strikes. The blue colors are below average, and in a lot of eastern Ohio, northern Ohio, it was a year that featured more lightning than average. You look into western PA, though, and you get into some blues, so a little bit less lightning than average in 2020 once you cross the state line and get into PA. A couple of things we can take away from this. Some of this is kind of random chance. As you know, sometimes thunderstorms in the summer season can be kind of randomly placed. But some of this is kind of climatology as well. Northern Ohio tends to be a stormier location than western PA. Part of the reason for that, thunderstorms, more often than not, move from west to east, and more often than not in our area, by the time complexes of thunderstorms bubble up in the afternoon and start drifting east, by the time they get into western PA, it tends to be later in the day. That tends to decrease the intensity of those storms. Not always the case, but often is the case. And I think that's part of the reason why you see the map kind of look like this. So that's not the only reason why northern Ohio shows more red than western PA, but it's one of the reasons. And again, I think there's quite a bit of chance involved in this as well, with randomly placed thunderstorms also being kind of a culprit, if you will. All right, back here in the cold weather season, the first 5 days of January, it hasn't felt like it's real warm. It's not a real balmy pattern, but each day has been warmer than average. These numbers are the high temperatures, but when you factor in the low temperatures, which have been way above average, for the first 5 days of January, pretty impressive number, 9 degrees above the average. Our average lows are bottoming out here as we get into January. The climatological averages reaching their bottom, both on the high end and the low end. Our lows bottom out around 18 or 19 as far as the averages go. We haven't even been close to that lately. Our lows have been in the lower 30s most of the last several nights. Accumulating snow has been hard to come by so far in January after a very, very snowy December. We've only had some random flurries, just some trace amounts so far this year, but that, of course, will change. You know, we're a handful of days into January now, and the next 2 or 3 weeks, climatologically speaking, coldest of the season. It can get, of course, really cold at this time of the year, and we saw that a few years ago, back in 2018. The end of 2017 and the first handful of days of 2018 were very cold. We had high temperatures in the single digits on both the 5th and the 6th. Then a few days later, got into the lower 60s. The pattern really snapped in a hurry as we got past this cold stretch during the last week of 2017 and the first week of 2018. We haven't seen an Arctic outbreak like that so far this winter, and, well, much of the last couple of winters for that matter. Earlier on today, a little weak weather disturbance was producing some light snow and flurries of basically no consequence from Cleveland down towards Akron, Canton, Dover, New Philly. These have faded away as we've gotten into the late afternoon and evening. That said, I can't rule out a flurry or a little mist. You might have to flip on the wipers once or twice tonight. No big deal. It's just going to be kind of like the last couple of nights. And once again, across the country, for a January weather map, there's not a lot going on. The next system to make the trip eastward is this one, taking shape across the middle of the country. This will become problematic for some locations, but not around here. You can expect, shockingly, a lot of clouds again on Wednesday. All this low-level moisture is trapped beneath an inversion about 5,000 feet above our heads. We see this all the time in the winter, where an inversion traps that low-level moisture. You get a deck of stratocumulus clouds. The lakes certainly don't do us any favors, our proximity to the lakes in the winter season. And yeah, we're going to stay pretty cloudy into Thursday morning. Maybe by Thursday afternoon, we start to see some breaks develop. I think more numerous breaks will try to develop on Friday. And this system will be an issue for some far south latitudes, but not around here. It's a mist to the south for us. So I think there'll be accumulating snow late this week in the mountains of North Carolina, certainly, and maybe out into the lower elevations of the Carolinas as well, especially North Carolina. The Ozarks in northwestern Arkansas can get some accumulating snow, and even into parts of Texas. But accumulating snow is not in the cards around here through the upcoming weekend. There's that happy hour run of the GFS Ensemble doing its thing. Just ignore that. Keep an eye on these lines down here, and yeah, over the next week, accumulating snow is not all that likely. Maybe next Tuesday we have to keep an eye on a little system, but at least through next Monday, I don't think that snow of any consequence is coming our way. Very little weather of any consequence coming our way for the next 6 days. Next 6 or 7 days featuring more of the same temperature-wise. Not real cold, not real warm either, not the 70 that we had on January 11th last year. We mostly in the 30s. But there are increasing signs, and it's a pretty good signal that the end of next week into the following weekend will feature a somewhat colder pattern, but perhaps more importantly, a stormier pattern, a pattern that can produce more impactful winter weather here locally and across a lot of the eastern U.S. I think this is going to be a pretty active period for winter storms as we go towards, the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th of the month, and towards Inauguration Day on the 20th. It doesn't look especially cold to me, but cold enough that we're going to definitely have our hands full, looks like, with some interesting winter weather as we go past mid-month. Want to talk about some longer-range thoughts this evening. Every month around the 5th of the month, we get a seasonal forecast update from the European Center, and I'm going to show you what it has in store for the rest of winter. Now, keep in mind, this is just modeling. It is not the answer key, but it's interesting to look at, and usually it does pretty well in at least the first month of this outlook. This is the January outlook, temperatures compared to average. Look how on fire Canada is underneath that big blocking ridge of high pressure, which is parked over Hudson Bay and just to the west of Greenland. This is very toasty stuff for a lot of Ontario and Quebec and a lot of the entire country, for that matter, of Canada. Now, as we look at across the U.S., I think January is probably going to come out in the wash as warmer than average here locally. Maybe like December, it won't be a huge margin, but at least maybe a degree or two. As we look ahead to February, then, the overall idea is kind of, the pattern won't change a whole lot in the large-scaleness of the pattern. I think there'll be more troughing out across the west coast, and that might promote more Pacific air masses in February. And February, at this point, I would say is unlikely to be a colder than average month. That being said, with the blocking patterns still in place up across eastern Canada, up towards Greenland, while it won't be maybe an especially cold February, I would expect another pretty stormy an active storm track, that is, underneath that block across the eastern two-thirds of the country. So I think the overall idea for the rest of the winter outlook, based on this model information, based on a lot of other information, is the rest of the winter probably won't be all that cold. It's probably not going to be a top 5 warm winter, like we said would be a kind of a remote possibility. In our initial winter forecast, I put it at like 20-25% chance of a top 5 warm winter. That's not looking all that likely at this point, but I don't see this winter pattern snapping and all of a sudden becoming harshly cold, a la the winters of 2013, 14, 14, 15. But we may have plentiful snowfall yet to come this winter. I would expect our total snowfall this winter to be way more than we had last year. Last winter at the airport, we had 44 inches. I don't know if we'll double that, but we'll probably get up to at least average, if not several inches above average in terms of snowfall before this winter is through. That's it for me tonight on Tuesday evening's Weather for Weather Geeks. Thank you, as always, for watching me, and I'll see you back here on Wednesday.